Second.
Hey everyone, you joined me in mid-conversation with Lev Parnas of Lev Remembers. Lev, of course, was a former Trump fixer, went to jail, came out, and realized, you know what? I was in service of a terrible person. Let me make things right. And then our Adam uh, Park O Park Homenko is going to join us in a second.
Oh, awesome.
Adam was a Democratic strategist, worked in the Clinton campaign, but also realized, you know what, the Democratic Party has to change. So he's going to come on soon. And there's a lot to talk about. James Comey is indicted, and James Comey just said he's going to make a seek to dismiss the case as a malicious prosecution. In addition to that, Trump has called this morning for the jailing of Chicago's Mayor Johnson and Governor Pritzker. Why? Because that's what dictators do. Also, he has federalized Texas National Guard to go into Illinois against Johnson and Pritzker's will. Furthermore, we've talked to Ken Klippenstein. He got the presidential memo, the National Security Presidential Memo 7, 2 weeks ago, that shows that this government, this Trump administration, is going to look at thoughts and rhetoric as indicators of left wing terrorism. That's anti ICE comments or anti Christianity comments. We've also seen ICE. National Guard military in LA. We've seen ICE terrorizing communities in Chicago. We see National Guard and ICE in DC. We see in Portland. He calls Portland a war zone. There is no war zone. Portland's like the most chill place on earth. Hey, Adam. And we saw yesterday, folks. I don't know if you all saw it. I'm sure you, Levin, Adam, you saw this. Pam Bondi, just in a really disturbing, disgraceful display. In front of our elected officials when she was under oath, where she was asked several questions like, "Hey, you know the borders are Tom Homan. Did he keep the money? You know, that money that was handed over to him in a bag, $50,000 for corruption, you know, the sting operation where the FBI caught him on video, and Tom Homan does not deny what he did. Did he return the money? She didn't answer that. She didn't answer a question about the Epstein files. And speaking about the Epstein files, folks, I want to remind everyone that the Wall Street Journal reported that in May, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, told Donald Trump he's all over the Epstein files. So what we've witnessed since May is a cover-up, and the super Christian guys. Very Christian Mike Johnson, for the past 2 weeks, has refused to swear in Adelita Grijalva, who won in Arizona. She's literally here in DC. Swear me in. I won the election in Arizona. And the reason why she isn't being sworn in by Mike Johnson is because she will give Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey the 218th vote to release the Epstein files. I know we keep talking about Epstein, 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 but I'm telling y'all that Epstein files, he would rather burn the government down than release the files. Lev, a lot to uncover. Let's give it to Lev first because Lev still has some sources inside, and those sources, when they're right,
Because Lev remembers.
huh?
I was saying, I love your hat, Adam. I was going to
Great,
say,
great hat.
I want to get one of those. That is a great hat.
We'll get you one.
Immigration, make America great again.
That's an indicator of left wing terrorism. Adam's hat is an indicator of left wing terrorism, according to the Trump administration.
I mean, think of it. I was going to say, Adam, remember when you first started reporting on me when we had that during the confirmation? I mean, during the hearings, we had that truck in Washington D.C. They came out and played all of those, like they.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
It's been a while since I've been on with Lev, but I'm so excited to be on with you.
Me too, Adam. Pleasure. I can't even believe that we're all here. Thanks, Wash, for getting all of us together. But look, right now, what we're seeing play out is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, the fact that we see Comey go in there and plead not guilty. But inside, I could tell you, as somebody that has been arraigned, has gone through the system. He is not. He has butterflies in his stomachs, no matter how you look at it, because when you have the full weight of the DOJ, and just think about it, if we take away Donald Trump for a second, Pam Bondi and everything, just in general, when you have the DOJ, the FBI after you, they have a 97% conviction rate. You already
Yep.
know. Now you put in place where you have the corruption of Donald Trump and the intimidation and influence of the Pam Bondis and the Cash Patels that are now going after you. This is a very, very serious situation. And what I'm hearing is I know we've been talking about names like Adam Schiff, and we've been talking about, the Attorney General, Letitia, just
James,
from New York. But right
Letitia
now,
James.
Letitia James, yes, but he's made a shift right now, and the major shift that he's made, and he's making a push, is for Jack Smith and Christopher Wray. Christopher Wray, who was his own FBI director that he put in, and a lot of people might say, "Hey, Lev, you're crazy. Why are you?" I mean, the Christopher. This is what I'm going to tell you, folks. What is happening right now? He's trying to change the narrative. He wants to do away with January 6th. He needs to be able to put Christopher Wray as part of the FBI, the deep state that basically took it, and it wasn't the MAGA Trump. It was a setup by the deep state. Same thing when it comes to the Jack Smith. It was all an attack against Trump, the indictments and everything. This is part of the rewriting history. It's not part of getting to the truth. It's not part of, indicting for somebody that did something criminal, but this is all part of changing history. Just like we saw in China, what they did with Tiananmen Square, by being able to have the young forget about what actually happened and moving on.
Adam, I think he's doing that right now. He's going after his enemies. He's an old man. This is the last grasp of power. So it's Festivus. But every day is Festivus, unfortunately, for Donald Trump, right? He's going
Now
after.
I'll be able to think of is Seinfeld.
Yeah, Seinfeld. He's going after, but also what we found out today is just a couple hours ago that he's threatening to arrest the mayor of Chicago and also the governor of Chicago. He said that they should be jailed for apparently resisting him federalizing the Texas National Guard to go into Illinois against their will. That's a major escalation, folks. I don't want us to normalize anything. I don't want us to normalize anything that Lev said. I don't want us to normalize anything what I just said. This is a desperate, weak, frightened rat backed into a corner who would rather burn down the government and the country than release the Epstein files. I just want you to, like, how abnormal is this for people who don't know? Because I think we unfortunately normalize this stuff. The president asking for the governor of Illinois and the Chicago's mayor to be arrested.
Well, it's very normal if you don't live in the United States and you live in Russia, right? And I think that's one of the things we're sort of looking at. And what Lev just said in terms of the shift, I couldn't agree more. And actually, no pun intended, but pun intended. I guess we could call it the shift, given one of the names that you guys mentioned. But Trump is somebody who um, I think I've said this to you before, Waj, but you can go back to even sort of the days where the military failed to shoot on Yeltsin, and Putin took these moments and made changes down the road when he became in a place of full power. That's combining the military, the different pieces of it, making it all one, putting somebody that he fully trusted in charge of all of that. I think Lev maybe would correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was his personal chef who he put over it.
Yes.
At the time, and you can see it in every aspect of what Donald Trump does. If you look at the Oval Office, all this plasticware from Home Depot that's been spray painted gold, right? He wants, although I saw a tweet yesterday that said it looks like the early days of Saddam Hussein. It kind of does, but he wants to one up Putin every chance he has, whether that's the military parade. And I think Michael Cohen has said it best recently, which is a lot of times people spend a lot of time trying to figure out what Donald Trump is going to do. And the reality is he's going to do what he's saying he's going to do. Or, if he says, when it comes to Maxwell, right? Well, I don't know. Maybe I haven't heard that name in a while, but like where he goes back and forth, we know what he's going to do. The only thing that we never get from him is when he promises a health care plan or, something of substance or policy. But when he's talking about everything that he is in terms of Chicago or Memphis, when he's talking about using U.S. cities as a training ground, he's serious. And the problem is that every single day it's not just worse and worse, but it is becoming more normal. So the normalization of this, in terms of what you're talking about, is something that is almost subconsciously being normalized on a day-to-day basis because we're witnessing it. Whether it's again, it's all made up. When Kristi Noem is standing on a rooftop looking down at literally 8 fucking people, one in a chicken costume, talking about the large Antifa crowds out there. That's what it is. And just leave it at the last part is in terms of Pam Bondi yesterday, Kyle Shivers, who I work with, I loved the post that he had, which was, just out of curiosity, who prosecutes the head of DOJ? And that's sort of where we're at right now with the Supreme Court coming back, who has absolutely nobody policing them.
And the Supreme Court already, Justice Thomas said last week that he no longer is bound by precedent. What does that mean? I think what they're going to do, folks, and you have to trust the evidence of your eyes and ears, is they're going to go after marriage equality. And people say, Waj, you're crazy. Well, I'll give you Dobbs and Roe v. Wade. So they're going to do whatever they want to do to help their president. And that's the key thing. It's their president, the unitary executive theory, which it gives expansive powers to the president of the United States to implement what is essentially a white Christian nationalist vision. And Justice Thomas, sadly, is one of the people who thinks he's the good ones who will be safe. So we have the Supreme Court that is completely compromised. But even the Supreme Court, guys, on two things, if you've noticed, 11.
By the way, is that Ginny Thomas's better half?
Or the worst half? I think better or worse?
Both are worse. Both are worse halves. But there's two interesting things with the Supreme Court recently. This Supreme Court that is completely in the pocket of Donald Trump. I don't know if you all noticed. First of all, they said Donald Trump can't fire Lisa Cook off the Federal Reserve because even this Supreme Court knows, you know what? We can't let this arsonist mess with the economy. The color green still trumps the color white. And the second thing they did, Lev, is Ghislaine Maxwell, who, by the way, folks, I want to remind everyone, I know I'm going to keep going back to the Epstein files today. Ghislaine Maxwell should not be in a minimum security Texas camp. No one has explained to us why Ghislaine Maxwell was moved from Florida prison to a minimum security Texas camp after spending 2 days with Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's personal attorney, who's the Associate Attorney General, who then within a week after meeting her, she was moved. No one knows who authorized it in the Bureau of Prisons. When Pam Bondi was asked, she didn't give the answer, right? But what we do know is then Ghislaine Maxwell came in and said, I never saw Donald Trump do anything wrong. Interesting. And then just a couple of days ago, I think it was 2 days ago, when asked at the White House by the press if he was open to pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell, Donald Trump said, Ghislaine, what? Who? I haven't heard that name in a long time. And he didn't say no. He didn't say no to pardoning her, folks. And he also didn't say no to using the Insurrection Act. And there is something, Adam and Lev.
I couldn't get over the part, by the way, where he was like, as he was trying to make up what he was going to say.
He's going to pardon. Actually, let me ask you this, Lev. I think he'll pardon her. And I want you all, there's some other nice news from today. Something we've been talking about for a while, me and Lev have been talking about. We said, watch this space with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie. Watch this space, folks, because what we've been saying is they see where the wind is blowing and they realize they know where MAGA's going. And I think they know because their base is radicalized that the base is not going to forget about the Epstein files. Just came out 4 hours ago that Trump has called senior Republicans left to ask, quote, what's going on with Marjorie? And the answer is Marjorie Taylor Greene has become disillusioned with her party, especially after the White House talked her out of a Senate bid. She said, I'm not some sort of blind slave to the president. That's an exact quote. And what we've seen is that she's pissed. She's joining Massie. She wants the release of the Epstein files. And maybe, Lev, she knows what's in those files. I give it to you.
Well, I'll tell you what happened, what I heard happened. Because first of all, she's going at it very hard between her and Laura Loomer. So her and Laura Loomer have been going at it back and forth, and there's been a riff going there. And
the shutdown now.
And the shutdown melt, exactly. What happened was where she took it really, where her and Trump started getting a rift with this Epstein is when she came to him, because part of her pitch to Massie and everybody was that she's going to get the survivors into the Oval. She went to him and asked him, and he turned her down and basically told her to go screw herself, because to him, that's the biggest no-no, which we've been talking about. And that's why she, after that, came out and even made a post out there, which was crazy, saying that I'm not suicidal, that if something happened. I mean, that was some crazy shit for her to put out.
It was a copy and paste of the George Santos tweet.
Right. And, and that's another thing that they have, that is going behind the scenes. There's a rift happening, is because Marjorie Taylor Greene is and Lauren Bobbitt actually are pushing Trump to pardon Santos, and Pam Bondi is dead set against pardoning Santos, and so there's another rift going. Look, the bottom line: there's a lot of rifts happening inside of Mega. What we need to do is we need to start capitalizing on them.
Yes.
We need to start getting, putting together an organized campaign, unified message. We need to get surrogates out there on all of these mega and not hardcore right wing left or hardcore left wing people that nobody's gonna that the right won't listen to, but people in the middle, people that will criticize the left, the right, the policy, because right now it's about unifying a message strong enough to be able to stop a dictatorship. Because what we're talking about, him going to a martial law, this is part of what Adam was talking about. What he's doing is he's copying every authoritarian playbook out there. And for a real dictatorship to take place, like in Russia or like China or like in North Korea, you need to control your military. And that's what we saw. The combination, and I keep saying this was not a coincidence, the combination of the shutdown of our government, the bringing all the generals into one room and making that whole play out there by even using AI to see the loyalty tests and who's going to stay in place, the pushing of the National Guard into cities right now, as we're speaking, hardcore pushes by having it. It's all a coordination and a coordinated plan, part of what Russell Vought and Stephen Miller have been. And Stephen Miller, the master of, you see him now out there in front, not in the back, but in front on the platform, doing his little Goebbels speeches out there, and that's where we're at, folks. And that's why right now, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No need to say sorry. Just to your point, of this was from the New Republic a week ago. Very soon, ICE will know exactly where you are all the time. ICE is planning on buying a tool that will let it see hundreds of millions of phones' location data. This is in addition to billionaire Peter Thiel, who has groomed JD Vance, his company, Palantir, essentially getting millions, actually billions of dollars from the US government to create, let's be honest, a surveillance state able to track us using our private financial, health, and travel data, social media donations, and furthermore. And then as this is happening, folks, and you have ICE agents using this information for raids, you also have the government going after its critics and now saying that people who have thought crimes are actually, people who are doing terrorism. Left-wing indicators of left-wing terrorism are thoughts and content against Christianity, against the government, against ICE. And furthermore, I want to remind people that they remember they kicked out that academic who was coming from France a couple of months ago. They searched his phone. They saw something critical of Donald Trump, and they denied him entry. Folks, this is what's happening. A surveillance state, a state in which the Republicans have complete control and power, where they're cosplaying as Alpha Man. Pete Kexeth, he also dressed up, if you thought yesterday, it's all he does. He just cosplays. Him and Christy Nunn, that's all they do. They do cosplay and they keep looking like fools, which is why, Adam, I do think going on offense actually works, because AOC did something 2 days ago, which has embroiled Fox for 2 days. She said Stephen Miller is a 4'10" nothing. And literally for the past day and a half, Fox has spent the last day and a half talking about Stephen Miller's masculinity and his potency. Like, it completely tilted them off axis by simply cutting through the bullshit and going on offense. Your take?
Well, here's a left hook Wajahat Ali scoop. Okay, so you saw that Katie Miller had posted those videos on Twitter where they were all freaked out about the chalk on the sidewalk outside their house. Their house is not too far from here, but anyhow, the Millers have put their house up for sale. And they are moving, I assume, probably into a nice bigger place because he's making all this money off of detention centers and so forth. However, the whole, we're not going to be afraid of chalk and, blah, 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 blah. That house is now up for sale as of today.
They are cowards, folks. This is the main thing I want people to think about, is that they are all weak. Stephen Miller is weak. Pete Kexeth is weak. Kristi Noem is weak. Pam Bondi is weak. Only weak people, insecure people behave like this. Normies do not behave like this Trump administration is behaving. And speaking about fear,
And
right
Wash,
before,
just to add one thing on to what Lev said, which was your original question before I went on to Stephen Miller. Sorry. Capitalizing on them, unifying a message, and then I would add the piece that you've been pushing, which is within this civil war, it's okay if you are going to retweet Candace Owens attacking somebody to amplify that message and keep that fight going. So I agree. I mean, the overarching message, the there's a great post, and I've shared it a couple times, but American citizens can't even get free health care, and y'all think undocumented immigrants do, relating to shutdown. That Kool-Aid must be banging. I mean, the fact is like Americans aren't buying this shit. And day by
no,
day with this shutdown, the people are paying attention to it, they're reading it. So let's make sure we have a good message. Let's take simple things like this. Like, are you really too fucking stupid to think that like undocumented immigrants are getting free healthcare because the Democrats are shutting this down if they get their way? And then capitalizing on them, which I think feeds into the piece that you've been doing really well when we talked about Nick Fuentes last week.
yeah.
No,
So go ahead, look.
I just wanted to touch on what Adam was saying is so important because, I was saying, see, the message, but we have to get the message out. The one thing that I've noticed, because look, when 2024 was coming around, none of us could ever imagine, I couldn't imagine that Trump was going to win. Because if you would go on all the social media platforms and you would hear the way everybody was talking about, but that's the whole thing. The social media is only a little part of the whole world. We have over 300 million people out there that are working every day. They're not on here. They're not watching this. They're out there trying to survive, working 2, 3 jobs a week, trying to put money, food on the table. And what they're coming to is they're coming to home to little skippets of, watching the daily news for 5 minutes or putting some local show on. And that is where Trump's specialty is. That's where, I remember even back in 2015, 16, Brad Pascal, he was a genius in this stuff. They were able to use all different technology going back then.
We just lost you.
Love your audio, but I was just going to say to Lev, to your point, that's why I thought it was so stupid what they did with Jimmy Kimmel, because for so many people out there, they can't afford cable. So this is somebody who is on some of the free channels that they have. I don't know if your audio is back.
Yeah, I was getting
Here
a
you go.
phone
You're
call.
back.
Yeah, I was getting a phone call. Yeah, so that's why I think it's more important than ever for everybody. First of all, I truly believe, and again, I'm not attacking any of the Democratic leadership, but we need new blood. We need somebody fresh.
It's okay. I'll attack the Democratic
You attack
leadership
them.
for you.
We need some new blood. We need somebody to come out.
That's will I.
Let's do it, guys. But we need somebody to come out there and fight fire with fire. The one thing, like, just think about the 3 things that Adam said. That's a simple message. He's talking about the economy. He's talking about the Epstein stuff. We should have leadership on the White House lawn every day talking about this, talking about how the Republicans are shutting down the government. How the
Well, that is so important. And you and Waj and me and others have been saying that for so long. And for the life of me, I want to reach out to Ken Martin this week and talk to him about it. I
Please.
don't understand. Like I saw at 12 o'clock today that Hakeem is doing some type of event. Other Dems are, but what I cannot for the life of me understand is why they don't show up with a podium and just have a press conference out there every single day.
Every morning.
Bring in new people. Totally. And by the way, all these people
Day
like
7 of the Trump government shutdown because they want to increase your healthcare.
Yeah.
We are here.
And also,
the message should be is we are here. We want to open the government. We're here. Where is Trump? He's golfing. Trump.
And troll them while they're at it. Today, we went into today last night, and the only thing, it may have changed as of now, the only thing on the president's public schedule for today was a 3 p.m. roundtable on Antifa.
Folks, you have to go on offense, and the reason why I think this is because I just want to connect the big picture. Let's step back for a second. This is what's happening, and Lev and Adam, tell me if you're wrong. We take Trump literally and seriously. The reason why this is normalized is because there's affirmative action for conservatives, and we know the way corporate media and politics and business works. It's a big club, and you ain't in it, to quote George Carlin, right? And so they wanted Trump to play the game left for the past 10 years. I saw it happen in D.C. Oh, Trump will be normal. Oh, we'll make Trump moderate. Remember this, Adam? Oh, will the elders of the party will rein him in. And Trump said,
But
nope.
what's the same thing they did with it's the same thing that the media did with Nancy Mace. They
The
told her
same thing.
for the
We'll
first
try to
term and a half
normalize.
that
We'll
she was
try
a
to
moderate.
normalize. We'll try to normalize. He'll play by our rules. He goes, F you, I'm going to break all the rules and you're going to bend to me. And they all did. They normalized him. They still continue to normalize him. They still do a both sides in order to create some false equivalency. Kamala Harris was treated really, she made her mistakes in her campaign. I talk about it. Adam, you talk about it. Lev, you talk about it. But she warned about Project 2025. All these things, just like Hillary Clinton, she warned, and the media didn't take her seriously. And they said, oh, she's being hyperbolic. Oh, this is too much. Made her seem like she's crazy. She was on point. Donald Trump in October, folks. I always bring this quote, that this quote has been seared in my head. When right before he was about to win the election, he promised everyone, he quoted Hitler yet again and said, I'm going to unleash the National Guard and the military against the enemy from within. And for the past year, Adam and Lev, I've been saying, take him literally and seriously. If he wins, it's endgame. He's never going to leave peacefully. He's going to stay in power. He's going to unleash the National Guard. He's going to create a manufactured crisis. His rack stack fires. He's then going to create some enemy. I said it's going to be Antifa or the left or Tren de Aragua or immigrants. There'll be some terrorist group. Then they're going to do the martial law and the Insurrection Act, and it's a wrap. Voila! Look what's happening, folks.
Or a caravan.
Or yeah, a caravan, anything. Caravan, Tren de Aragua, drug cartels, Venezuela, whatever. Antifa. Now he's declared Antifa a terrorist organization, even though it does not exist. Now he's saying
Wait,
that
watch. Can I just add on Antifa? The best tweet in the last 2 weeks was the one that was like, if Antifa was a real organization, I would be getting 40 to 50 fundraising text messages a day from them.
it'd be Nancy Pelosi. Antifa needs $5, please. So now he's declared Antifa a terrorist organization. He has the national security presidential memo that we talked about with left-wing terrorist indicators. Notice for the past 3 weeks, no one's talking about Tyler Robinson, the alleged shooting suspect. Why? Because they've already ceded to their base that it was they and them that was responsible for Charlie Kirk's murder. Who's they and them? Apparently me, Lev, immigrants, Adam, Kamala Harris, who knows, right? Stephen Miller
Well, and their
came out.
base is not buying it, right?
Yeah, the Stephen Miller came out. Remember, he said the final thing that what was his name? Charlie Kirk told me that we have to quash left wing terrorism. Remember that? So now you have all that. Now you have him sending the National Guard of other states to places where he wants to quash dissent: Portland, Chicago, L.A., D.C. And now he's threatening to arrest the governor, Pritzker, and the mayor of Chicago. And he's just indicted Comey. And he wanted to go after Lisa Cook. And he wants to go after Chris Wray, according to Lev. And so what is all of this? This is a desperate man, a cornered rat who realizes, oh my God, the people are turning against me. My numbers are underwater. The economy is sinking. And over 80% of Americans want the Epstein files to be released. And Lev, I asked you about this, and I want to ask you about this also, Adam, because you know these Dems. Representative Swalwell of California, Democrat, he tweeted this 5 hours ago. Quote, it's coming to an end, guys. I've spoken to a lot of House Republicans this week, and they've confided that Trump's movement/support is fading. As one told me, quote, this Epstein bomb is about to drop, and no one wants to defend a pedo protector. It's just a matter of time. And then he did another tweet after that. One Republican just texted me that if there's a discharge vote on Epstein, they expect, quote, a jailbreak of over 100 members. Trump will go nuts. Lev.
Oh, well, I definitely agree with them on that one. I actually had on my Substack Congressman Bacon, and we spoke about that. And he's one that didn't sign the discharge paper, but went and voted in the oversight committee to get the information. And I asked him, I said, what's with this discharge? How come more of you are not signing up and getting this done? And he said something interesting. He said to me on the subject, he said, Lev, he goes, I think that once this hits the floor, you're going to see a lot more support of this, because what's going to take place, and this is one of the things we've been talking about, Wash, is having all of these people go on record. Because now you're going to have, because look, we talk about 10%, maybe 10 or 15 most popular Republican mega congressmen or women that are out there in the loud voices. But there's 200 out there that are running very tight races, 200 that are not agreeing with everything Trump does, and they're trying to stay quiet. They're trying to weave through the way. Not to, we need to put the spotlight on them. Just like Swalwell said, we need the votes. When the vote hit the floor, that's when you're going to start seeing who's going to be for covering up or uncovering the Epstein file. So I agree with Swalwell on that. And that's what I'm hearing also, that I think that the floodgates will open up eventually. And that's why Johnson is doing everything in his power to hold it back as far as he can.
Adam, I know there's multiple fires and there's multiple messages for these fires, but we have a disunited Democratic Party. I think that's the reality. I think there's an internal civil war within the Democratic Party. I've been saying it for months, which is why you see no coordinated message, because I think internally the Democrats themselves have no faith in Schumer and Jeffries, and Schumer and Jeffries are holding on with their cold dead hands power for as long as they can, which is why you're seeing an ad hoc response by Ro Khanna, AOC, Jasmine Crockett, and so forth and so forth. But I know there's a lot there. Threats against our cities, threats against our elected officials, the shutdown of the government. By the way, Donald Trump is underwater on all of this. 60% of Americans are against the overreach with the National Guard. Most Americans blame Republicans for shutting down the government. He's negative double digits on immigration, -10 for the first time. That used to be a strong suit. He's negative on economy. But the reason why I focus on Epstein, a variety of reasons, is over 80% of Americans, Adam, 80% of Republicans, MAGA, Independent, and Democrats want the release of the Epstein files. And Pam Bondi, under oath yesterday, had no response or answers when it comes to the Epstein files. And the more and more we hear about it, the more and more it goes drip, 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 drip. We find out Elon Musk was involved. Oh, yeah, his dad allegedly is raping his own stepkids. Peter Thiel was there. Donald Trump is all over it. So I go back to say that this is the biggest cover up that we've seen since May. And this is the dam that will break or will allow these divisions to exist. Because from a strategic point of view, Adam, and I hate talking like this, but just bear with me, because girls were raped. It's disgusting. There still hasn't been accountability. There still hasn't been justice. We want to get justice. We want to get all these men. Ghislaine Maxwell is the only person in jail. No man other than Epstein has been indicted so far. That's a mistake. So we want to get justice and accountability. And also, Adam, in order to get justice and accountability, you have to use strategy. So this is why I'm thinking this way. And going back to a point you mentioned, we've seen the fissures in MAGA. MAGA is the one that's radicalized by the Epstein files. Your take on going all in on the Epstein files, because I think it all connects to Epstein. It weakens Pam Bondi. It weakens Kash Patel. It further divides Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, Laura Loomer, Thomas Massey. Your take on this?
Dan Bongino.
Dan Bongino.
Yeah, and we should talk later. I'm not even going to say the name because I'm not ready for Waj to do the impression yet. 3 or 4 things on what you just said. So first of all, one correction for you, Waj. I've never corrected you. You said a sewer rat. Brian Karam, I believe, calls it a cornered New York sewer rat. So
Yes.
we got to use that messaging moving forward too. What you and Lev, who always remembers, said in terms of the vote of 100. I believe this to be true because what we had heard at the time from 2 individuals that don't typically work together. It's a very unique combo, Massey and Kana, who have done an incredible job. And it's not just showing up with a poster. They've been putting real work into this. Is we got to those 3, which were Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace. At the time, they actually had about 10, but the other 7, give or take, were not ready to come forward. However, a lot has changed since then. And since then, we've had the Kash Patel testimony, both on the Senate and House side, which was jaw dropping, a similar moment where he literally said, that Epstein was the only individual who trafficked in women and girls. That's not true just off the bat, with the fact that Maxwell is where she is. Doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter who's on the list. We want it all out there. And so do they. And so with yesterday's testimony, with Pam Bondi, where there was just that. I almost kind of, the only thing that I wish changed yesterday was I wish Senator Whitehouse had maybe done the same thing she did for a
Yeah.
remaining 60 seconds
Well, they
and
should also them. I
just
think I
waited,
agree. Yeah.
and like given some more time for her to have that sort of non-answer. But as my much better half, Allie, said yesterday, that non-answer was an answer. And
There you
I
go.
think this is sort of the line in the sand that it doesn't matter who you are. And by the way, we see Republicans every day. What I used to work at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children for 3 years, and we had Mark Foley of Florida on our board, right? Who was, sexually abusing pages. We had Dennis Hastert. This
We
goes
had
on
Dennis
and on
Hastert
and
on the
on.
board. You had Dennis
Not on the
Hastert.
board, but
Well,
Mark Foley was on the board of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which was just like salt on the wound. But I'm just saying they have had endless folks, and it doesn't mean that there's not folks on, not to be a both sides person, but like they are the biggest hypocrites on this, because I worked for Bill Clinton for 15 years. If Bill Clinton's on the list, show it. You know what I mean? But don't tell me that Donald Trump and the Republican Party are doing everything they can to protect Bill Clinton and Bill Gates. That is just pure bullshit.
Adam, last week, to Adam's point last week, Donald Trump's spiritual advisor. Tell them all what happened to Donald Trump's spiritual advisor. You all know?
The spiritual advisor, yeah, out of Texas. I mean, this is just crazy. So I think this is just this one
Well,
thing
the spiritual
where
advisor folks got arrested for having sex with a
the
girl.
underage
Yeah,
girl.
instead of going to jail for 30 years or 10 years for some strange reason, he's only going to jail for 6 months.
6 months. And the other thing I wanted to touch on, Adam, when you were talking about yesterday's Pam Bondi fiasco, the one thing I really liked was when all of a sudden Senator Kennedy went attacked her, and that was the best part of all. He said, "Are you going to bring in Lutnick? Where's Howard Lutnick? How come you're not bringing?" She was like,
I mean, but to your point, that's what Democrats should be doing right now.
Thank
so,
you. Exactly.
So I agree. Look, I think this is, I think, not to rehash our call last week, Waj, which with all these, first of all, 1.6 thousand that are on, thank you. We had an incredible conversation with Brian about a couple, maybe two big issues, one being Epstein, and another piece which Brian is currently doing to push for records as it relates to the files that were at Mar-a-Lago. But when it comes to him being cornered, this Epstein piece does feel like it is the straw that broke the orange camel's back. And I think it is making people very, very, very uncomfortable because their own folks aren't buying it. Maybe the 38% aren't buying it. But in addition to that 38%, let's call it 12%. Maybe that 12% tunes into Candace Owens. And these people have had enough. And Marjorie Taylor Greene and others, they cannot continue to be in a position to defend this. We saw an incredible Democrat that was sort of off camera with, I'm calling him Little Johnson now, talking about how unwell Trump is and so forth. And everything you need to know about Mike Johnson doing that whole thing. And last thing I want to say is this. In terms of the Democrats, we have incredible Democrats out there doing what they need to do, but we get 100, 200, 500 stories every day on Fox, CNN, you name it, about Dems in disarray, the Dems shut down, whatever. So then at some point, why don't we just hold elections for our Senate and House leader? We can do that anytime. Who gives a shit? But like, if we're going to be out there fighting this fight, we can't also just be sort of saying, okay, we're going to go along with Hakeem and with Chuck Schumer the way that we went along with Joe Biden's reelection. We just can't.
Well, this is why you're seeing the internal civil war. This is why we need more people to be loud. And I think Schumer and Jeffries need to realize that they're done. They're not built for this fight. They're not made for this moment. And just like, that famous quote from Charlton Heston, when he was the president of the NRA, he held up the rifle and he said, "They're going to have to pry it from my cold, dead hands." That's Schumer and Jeffries when it comes to leadership. But I think the writing's on the wall. They must realize they have lost the confidence of the American people and the party. And I think more and more, That's what you're seeing, folks. You're seeing the jockeying for the next leader. You're seeing Ro Khanna jockey. You're seeing AOC do it. You're seeing Bernie Sanders. That's what's happening.
You know
And
what?
we need more
And I will
people.
tell you, there's a lot of people who, and first of all, Ro Khanna is a very close and good friend of mine, but I have a lot of friends who had a lot of issues with Ro, who now, and these are folks that are, 20, 30-year Dems who kind of always went in the way the party was going, and collectively, these are people that would get behind Ro.
Yeah,
It's
because
just a
Ro,
fact.
Let
look,
me,
what Ro, go ahead, Lev. Go ahead, Lev.
yeah, sorry about that, Waj. I want to ask Adam a quick question. What about the name I'm hearing, the name I'm liking is Bashir's?
Bashir is great, and for full transparency, Bashir is a client of mine, not in like a big way. I've worked with him for years, but we built his website and so forth. I love Andy. Andy's
And
actually up in New Hampshire right now, and but like I don't have a horse in the race when it comes to the presidential, but he's just a good guy. And by the way, I
and
worked
that's what I'm saying
against
to
him
you.
in his I worked against him in his primary, and the reason he hired me was because I love how hard you went against me and how much you hit me, and I want you on my side pissing out. So that was sort of how we first met.
I like Andy, and I think I'm going to have him on my Substack also. But I think, yes, it's still early for the presidency, and I agree with you. Usually they don't come out, but right now, I think we need some sort of a leader. We need somebody to come out there to start speaking up and not just trolling like Newsom does, or fighting or trying to defend himself like Pritzker does, but somebody there out there to be able to take the lead and to go out and say the changes that we're going to start going up against, start going on the offense. I mean, the bottom line is, we need to stop playing defense. We need to take away the news cycle. And the biggest thing we have is, like Waj keeps saying it over and over again, it's simple. You have survivors. You have Epstein survivors. You have Epstein victims that are wanting.
Who are re-victimized every time their
Every
story is
single day.
told.
They're begging to meet with the president of the United States. They're telling him that they're conservative. They want to tell
And they're
him
speaking the truth, as we
and
know from the press conference, because when Pam Bondi was asked the question she was asked, which came from a victim speaking out publicly, she couldn't answer it.
exactly. So tell me, a simple thing like this is, how do we not have organized and have a press conference every single day with some of these victims and lawyers on the White House
There's
lawn?
no leadership, Lev.
On the White House lawn, and say, President Trump, come sit down with us. He'll have a
That's
heart
what we need
attack.
immediately. And by the way, just one little asterisk too. I don't mean to keep interrupting your talking, but you mentioned
No, please.
2028, and it's such a good point. And when we talk about fighting the way that they fight, except we do it legally, we need to have the most robust primary we have ever had in 2028. I don't care if it's 100 debates. I don't care if we embarrass each other. I don't care what's on film, because go back to Donald Trump. He was saying shit about all these people. They were saying it about him. It's been replayed a million times. It did not stop him from getting elected. It did not stop Lindsey Graham from falling in line. We need to really, really hash out who is the best, and go back to Kamala's book, right? And she was honest. She was honest about the calculations she made in terms of Mayor Pete. We need to take that and say, okay, well, maybe at the time, if we were involved in those conversations, we would have disagreed. But we need to go all in Vegas this time.
And what you
So
said
let
is,
me.
throw out the old Democratic playbook and bring in fresh new blood, because you have to. This is a new type of evil that we're fighting, and we have to.
Republicans don't win elections, Democrats lose them, and I don't even think we have a playbook. So the good news is we could just start from fresh.
There's literally
Exactly.
no Project 2028. There's no Project 2029. Let me get in and give you my thoughts, and then give you a question of something we talked about: divide and conquer. My take on this, and then before I give you this question, is the following: there's no leadership right now. You're seeing it in real time, which is why there's no coordinated plan. Everyone's doing ad hoc stuff to be helpful. You're seeing people leaning to their strengths, but that's why it's a disparate. It's just kind of like one here, one here, one here, one here. There's no combos being delivered right now because there's no plan. Unfortunately, But fortunately, there are people who realize, okay, Ro Khanna can write this, White House can write this. Wyden, I hope he looks at the money trail. You're having the Fight the Oligarchy tour. You got these young fresh blood Planter, Graham Planters running. You got Zoran Mamdani. All right, so there's bubbling. There's some freshness bubbling. Democrats are, I think, +4 in the latest polling. They should be +40. But again, the Democratic National Party had its lowest favorability rating since 1994 because people see them as weak and ineffectual, and you have leaders like Jeffries and Schumer. What you're witnessing, in my opinion, folk, and Lev and Adam, is this civil war in the Democratic Party is between this old guard. I'm not using the word old as a pejorative, but people who want to bear hug AIPAC and Israel and the corporate donors and the oligarchy versus this new age Democrat, the majority, which says, I'm done with Israel, I'm done with Netanyahu, I'm done with AIPAC, I'm done with the oligarchy, I'm done with corporations, tax the rich. And I think those are the two litmus tests in particular, in addition to whether or not are you going to fight for a restoration or reformation. Biden was a restoration type of guy. That time is over. People want fighters who will bring in radical change. They don't care about the terms Democrat, MAGA, Democratic Socialist. Notice, folks, people don't give a shit anymore. You have just as many Democratic Socialists now as MAGA. Who would have thought? People realize that the institutions are corrupt, the institutions are broken, it's not working for them. They don't care. Whoever comes in and says, I promise to change it up, I promise to be a bulldozer, I promise reform, that's the person they're going to fight for. And folks, I know this is painful, but that's the bullshit that Donald Trump wrote in 2015 and 2016. Outsider, anti-establishment, bulldozer, right? It's all bullshit. He's about as establishment as it gets. But that explains why people voted for Trump and Bernie. People voted for Trump and AOC. People voted for Trump and are supporting Mamdani. And that's the big schism that you have right now in the Democratic Party. And the last thing I'll say, because it's 2-year anniversary of the October 7th terrorist attack, and since then the genocide that's happening, you're seeing some people like literally willing to burn down the Democratic Party instead of giving up fidelity to friggin' AIPAC and Israel, which is just mind-boggling to me. But I think there's going to be a shift, folks. I think there's going to be a shift. The shift is happening, and you're going to need fighters. And I think there's shift happening all across. It's not just the Democrats. And the last thing, my take on this with the Bashirs is I think that the fighter who goes all in with a progressive message, that's what Ro Khanna has done. He's changed his tune, if you all have noticed. They're going to win the national. But then I think, Lev, to your point, the Andy Bashirs give you a playbook to win in these red states, right? Where you don't have to necessarily throw all the woke under the bus, but on some things like guns, and a little thing on transgender folks, which I hope he changes, but a few things here or there on the culture wars, uh, you're going to have to give for the Bashirs and other things to win. But who is fighting for something? Who's fighting for the people? Who's fighting for reformation? Who's fighting for taxing the rich? Who's fighting for making America affordable again? I think that's the one. When people say guns, I'm not saying he's going to embrace assault rifles, folks, but I'll give you an example. Bernie Sanders. Notice his track record when it comes to Second Amendment, because the state he's in, Adam, they love their guns, right?
Yeah, I've got a
Well, tell me if I'm
friend in
wrong. I said a lot. Tell me if I'm wrong.
no, you're right. And one of my best friends is an ATF agent based out of Vermont.
So, I mean, that's all I'm saying is a one size fits all is not going to be it. But I think the characteristics are reformation, fighter, taking on the rich, making America affordable, standing for something, be authentic, be honest. That's the one that will rise. Lev,
And don't forget the base. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean you're saying it 100%. But the biggest thing I want to take out of what you were saying. I think the biggest message is that we need to unite. We need to unite as strong. It doesn't. We can't see. This is the whole thing. We can't go out there and start talking about every single policy that Trump destroying, because the message gets lost. People don't listening. It has to be short, sweet, and powerful. We're fighting for humanity. We're fighting against dictatorship. We're fighting for our Constitution. We're fighting for our freedom. This is not a bipartisan issue. Republicans, just like Swallow said, they seen it themselves. They're feeling it in their pocketbooks. They're also feeling it. This right now, it's not about gun control. It's not about women's rights. And I'm sorry to say it, it's not about policy. It's about, because that's what starts dividing us. That's what Trump wants us to start talking about, where AOC wants this policy, Bernie wants this, the far right wants this. No, right now we need to all unite against dictatorship. We are living in a dictatorship, fascism, where our rights are being taken away. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. It doesn't matter if you voted for Trump. You're getting deported just like everybody else. He doesn't care. And people are starting to see that. That's the message. The message should be that look what he's doing to everybody. He's taking away our Constitution, our rights. He's destroying our economy. 2, 3 things. And keep pounding it. The same thing. The Epstein files, Project 2025, economy. You don't need more. That's what he ran on. If you take a look at his, what's it called? He doesn't talk about 20 million things. He gets up there and says the same thing for 2 hours. Immigration, fighting, crime in the streets, our economy. That's it. We need to talk about the same, but talk about the facts and the truth, because we have it. Because he's lying. We have the truth.
Lev, what we said before is the three Achilles cankles of Donald Trump are the Epstein files, the economy, and his health. I will add one more. It's the overreach. It's the Project 2025,
Yep.
which he, like a fool, thank you, Donald Trump, has publicly come out and embraced last week, and released an AI-generated video embracing himself and Russell Vought as the Grim Reapers. Folks, Project 2025, for that brief moment during the 2024 campaign when people found out about it, I think had an approval rating in the single digits. Like it was toxic, which is why Donald Trump lied and said I had nothing to do with it. But I do think those are the three: Epstein, the economy, he's underwater on both, and now the overreach. Call it overreach, authoritarianism, fascism, whatever you want to call it. He's underwater on this overreach as well. Plus, he's old. You really just need these three pegs: Epstein, the economy, and the overreach, and you can weaken him. I want to ask you this final question. Speaking about divide and conquer, going back full circle, and you mentioned it, folks, and I have a little information for you. Candace Owens. Now, if you've been following me, and Adam, we've been talking about divide and conquer, right? And so what we've been trying to tell y'all is I've been watching Candace Owens for the first time. I do it as research and work, not because I want to. And Candace Owens has been on a tear for the past 3 weeks promoting conspiracy theories because she's gone against Kash Patel and his actual, FBI investigation, and she's against Pam Bondi, and she's against Dan Bongino, and she says that there's a cover up. He doesn't
I had
believe.
Kash Patel impersonation on my list for the end of the show, but you're
I'll
getting
see
it
you at
early.
Valhalla, Adam. Hey, open the doors to Valhalla. Sorry. They don't believe the FBI explanation of the Charlie Kirk murder. They've been running with conspiracy theories, and on top of that, the reason why they don't believe the deep state is because of the Epstein files, which is why Dan Bongino is super quiet. This is a major fissure, folks, a major fissure, because Candace Owens has a huge sway over the conservatives, so much so that Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of another country, has come out twice, Lev, in the past 3 weeks and said Israel had nothing to do with Charlie Kirk's murder. And speaking about, I think Lev or Adam, you said how Marjorie Taylor Greene said, "I am not suicidal." Theo Vaughn said that last week. Yesterday, Candace Owens says she has activated her dead man switch, describing it as her life insurance policy in case anything happens to her. She revealed that she sent a sealed package containing texts, emails, videos, and private legal documents to her most trusted people. Owen said every political figure involved will be publicly named if she suddenly dies. Let them fight, Adam. Let them fight. Adam, take it away. Final word to you and then to Lev.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot to take in. I was just going to say one more reminder if we want to, maybe we should tag Candace Owens and remind her, but Jeffrey Epstein died on the watch of Donald Trump and Bill Barr. So all this back and forth bullshit and conspiracy theories and memes of, Hillary with her mustache and stuff. This is a guy who died while Donald Trump was in office. So if they're concerned about what happened there and how he died and stuff like that, Donald Trump's first administration and his second administration would know and have access to all of that. But I totally agree. And I had a couple other. I mean, you really threw me off with the Achilles cankles. I absolutely love that. Um, I really think one point I did want to make when we were talking about leadership and elections. I think one thing that bothers me a lot is that we have a leadership in our party who does not play by the same rules and expectations that they provide to other people. For example, you can't have a DNC that says DNC officers cannot engage in primaries while having a DNC and a New York State party that does not endorse the winner of the Democratic Party. So to kind of take it back to your cookie cutter, what Lev and you were saying, look, I've known this for years. When I first started working with the Clintons in Arkansas, it's, no state is alike, right? Northern Virginia, you could have parts of Northern Virginia that are very different. The fact is, you're going to have different candidates that step up and run. And we can't have this litmus test. Andy Bashir obviously was incredible on pro-choice, ran on it, put out survivors and so forth. I don't know what's going to come of the 2028 piece, but this bullshit needs to end where we're telling people they can't support the people that they want to support. And then we can't offer support from a national and state level to the people who win based on who our voters voted for. It's a problem. It's an easy problem to solve. It just takes all of us saying enough is enough. We're not going to put up with that shit and change things. And I think that the nice thing is
the Zoran Mamdani debacle is indicative of literally everything we've talked about for the past 20 minutes. Popular, young, the voters want him, and still, folks, the date is October 8th, and still Schumer and Jeffries have not endorsed him. It's shameful. Lev, final word to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy sitting back like we were talking about when you started mentioning Candace Owen and stuff like that. I had a little like flashback of PTSD, sitting back in 2017, almost 8 years ago, remembering when Candace Owen and Charlie Kirk came into America first, when they first came to us, and with this great idea how they're going to go, or they pitched. They actually had him, you don't even know, but they pitched. Aaron was supposed to be Charlie Kirk's right hand and Candace Owens' right hand man
Oh,
going
wow.
colleges. And me and Aaron had
More breaking news, but we won't tell Aaron. Nobody tell Aaron.
And that's where I tell you, it's amazing that at such a young age, he was able to stand up to me, because I was very forceful at the time. I was like, are you kidding me? You're going to work for the White House. You're going to work for America. You're going to be Charlie Kirk's right. You're going to go to
Well, and I got a
Congress.
call from Katie Fang and a bunch of others about Aaron when he was really young, and they were like, "There's this guy. He reminds us of you, although Aaron's far more successful. And you guys got to talk. His name is Aaron Parnas, and like he's going places, but like he's amazing. So the first call I ever got was from Katie Fang years ago.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And yeah, he said, Dad, no, I'm not gonna do it. And he turned them down. He turned and walked out. But sitting back, remembering, she was such a young. They were so young. I mean, they were none of this radicalization back then. I mean, the ideas, the thought, and to watch the progression and watching, we see even Trump. Sitting back and remembering Trump and back in 2016 and watching him right now, the things he's doing. I mean, we have fallen so hard, so fast in the past 7 years as a country. And I just want to say this one thing, if we don't stand up now, if we don't join together, if we don't unify our message, if we don't stop going at each other's throats, because of one thing, not because of policy, not because red, blue, not because we all bleed the same way. We are all Americans. And right now, the number one message is we need to save our democracy from dictatorship. It doesn't matter about anything else. So we could come back to being able to debate. So we could come back to the table of being able to disagree, to be able to go against policies and try to get this country back together. Because what Donald Trump, the one thing he learned from Vladimir Putin, and he's been doing very well, is divide and conquer, not
Yeah.
unite. He's the
So
only
division, and these are all Cold War tactics that have been brought online. They haven't changed. I just watched to add one thing to what Lev is saying. The one thing that I really want to see Democrats do is do the branding that Republicans have for years. And we may not like it. People listening may not like it, but we need, like, it's like Lev's shirt, right? Everyone knows Lev's shirt because that's the branding. But you need to make Republicans vote against something that their hands are tied on. So when it comes to Epstein, if I were Massey and I were Kana, I would make this the Do It for Charlie Act. He wanted
Thank
all of the Epstein stuff out there. So you either have to vote for Charlie Kirk or you have to vote for a pedophile.
That's great. I
Which
love
one are
that.
you
I
gonna
love
do?
that.
I love
That's
that.
a
I love
fantastic
that,
point
Adam. That's a great
because
one.
you have him on record pretty much before he died saying release the Epstein files. So in honor of Charlie, release the Epstein files, release the Epstein files. Folks, I got to get Jen Budd on. This has been Lev Parnas of Lev Remembers. Adam, he has his own show in Substack.
Adam remembers Lev.
Adam, yeah, everyone subscribe. There's 2,100 people watching. A lot of people join late. Don't worry, it'll be up all all over Substacks in about 30 minutes. This is the Left Hook, no paywalls. There's going to be a transcript. If you all can subscribe to all 3 Substacks, give some money to Lev. He has 700 kids. Give some money to Adam. He has 500 kids. And if you have a little bit of money left over, become a paid
A
subscriber.
stepson.
I've got 300 kids, but that's okay. Even if you don't have money, at least subscribe, be informed, be kind, and folks, don't be a fascist. Thank you, Lev. Thank you, Adam.
Take care, guys.